Okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, Becky looked real happy to see that I'm there. Yeah, there's nobody really there. So, well, the select board meeting? Yeah. So Becky just kind of looked at who was there and got up and walked away. Who was there? Me, Mia Farrell, Becky, Robert Kibler, Leslie Luchonic. No.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Amanda, it's Becky. I just want you to know that I went to get a file for the assessors to try to follow up on a question for Tom Seifert, but I really appreciated all your comments. Thank you.
And you were recorded. Becky, you haven't heard anything from Melissa, have you?
No, I haven't. I'll check in with her.
Okay, all right. So we're waiting for Melissa to show up before we start the meeting. We'll wait.
Melissa is logging in right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Melissa.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call a meeting of the Shutesbury Selectboard to order. Today is December 6th, 2022. This meeting is being held via Zoom. And if you know me, you could probably tell by the sound of my voice that I am fighting a bad cold. So if I start to cough or need to take a break, I'm going to mute myself. And if I have to step away, Melissa, I'd ask that you would take over. I'll try to stick with it here. But anyway, so the first thing, as always, is to review this evening's agenda, and then we'll go on from there. So first on the agenda is public comment. After that, we have 2 sets of minutes to review from November 9th, December 1st. Then at 5:45, the web committee is going to do a presentation and lead a discussion about IT needs in the community. Then go over issues for the Regions 4-Town meeting, which is happening on December 17th. An update on where things stand with PFAS. Then the Massachusetts School Building Authority boiler invite review, making a decision about whether or not we're going to do that. A discussion about potential meeting with the Conservation Commission regarding Lot 032, and then town administrator updates. So again, pardon my voice here. I'll try not to do so much talking tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. And I ask that if you have a public comment, that you use the raised hand feature and limit the extent of your comments to no more than a couple of minutes. Okay, so Jill, I think you were the first one I saw.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I wrote my comments down. So my comments will be addressing the parts of the last 2 select board meetings and the most recent finance committee meeting concerning the Conservation Commission's requests for $2,500 for outside counsel with select board members' attempts at dissuasion. At 2 select board meetings ago, when the chair of the Conservation Commission speaking on behalf of the whole Conservation Commission requested $2,500 for outside counsel because town council recused herself from continuing to provide legal advice to the Conservation Commission because she was representing the town of Shutesbury. The chair of the Conservation Commission was very clear as to the reasons for legal services. The select board 2-1, despite the clearly articulated Conservation Commission's reasons why this request for $2,500 was being made reluctantly, referred the Conservation Commission to the Finance Committee to put forward this request. At the Finance Commission meeting, Mr. Stroka and Ms. Farrell were even more ardent in their arguments against the Financial Committee granting the Conservation Commission $2,500 request, even calling it adversarial, as if they hadn't heard or was not able to digest the rationale presented by the Conservation Commission. It was at the same Finance Committee meeting and or at the Select Board meeting referenced above that Rita bemoaned the eroding legal funds of the Select Board and further would now have to hire their own outside counsel, as if the recusal of town council was the Conservation Commission's fault. To me, the coup de grace was at the last Select Board meeting. Rita announced that they had hired one of the largest, oldest Boston-based environmental legal firms for representation. When Ms. Makepeace asked what that was costing the town, the chair of the Select Board said it was an hourly rate, but stated she did not know what the rate was. I think that must be somewhat disingenuous, because who hires any service, let alone a legal service, without having a reliable estimate of costs?
Jill, we have a number of other people. I asked that be limited to 2 minutes. You can.
I have 2 sentences. I have 2 sentences, please. The Finance Committee almost unanimously, but for one vote, respectfully heard the Conservation Commission's rationale and granted the Conservation Commission the $2,500. And I request my comments be a part of this select board meeting, minutes or addendum.
Okay, Les?
Well said, Ms. Marland. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
My name is Leslie Luchanik. I've lived at 61 West Pelham Road for 32 years. You may recall, Select Board, or not, that I spoke to you at a Select Board meeting this past September after watching a joint CONSCOM Select Board meeting held a few days before. I said to you, I'm shocked and appalled by the tone and demeanor of the Select Board, and the town and board officials were unduly aggressive and hostile regarding the commission and its volunteers. I urged the board to change its attitude and approach. Unfortunately, to me, the tone and tenor of the board and other officials has not changed. If anything, the level of hostility has increased. I've seen other town residents pick up on this behavior and pile on in what can only be described as a concerted campaign directed to discredit and undermine and its chairperson. This must stop. What is alarming and ironic with all this hue and cry about Lot 032, the town is confronting a serious public health emergency with potentially dire financial implications, as was briefly noted by the town administrator in an update at the end of last week's select board meeting. The state DEP has issued a notice of responsibility to the town regarding higher levels of PFAS hazardous contamination at the fire department and adjacent properties. Without going into technical details, the notice states, please, no disposal site will be deemed to have had all the necessary and required response actions completed until and unless all substantial hazards presented by the release and or threat have been eliminated. For starters, the town must hire a licensed site professional to address the situation. Town officials have been aware of this PFAS contamination for over a year, and we have already spent considerable sums to address the contamination. In the interest of transparency, accountability, and public safety, it behooves the select board and town officials to give a full and open accounting to town officials, to town residents, of what has occurred and what will be required to address this threat and DEP's mandate to clean it up. This accounting should include, but not be limited to, a clear, comprehensive report on residents and an open public meeting where residents can ask questions and engage in a public dialogue. My question here is, what's important here now? Thank you. I'll submit these comments in an email to you tomorrow, so it's on that record as well. Thank you.
Miriam?
Thank you. I sent an email about an hour ago to the select board. I just received it from our third-party reviewer, Emily Stockman, of the Stockman Associates. She's doing the third-party review for the Conservation Commission for the ANRAD. And because there were additional investigations and site visit work, she is expending her budget and is requesting a reauthorization of additional funds so she can finish the ANRAD consultation work. So I am bringing this to the select board. So it's not on the agenda because it's time sensitive. She has to stop working when she's expended all of her funds. So
Miriam, let me just stop you there. We received it and there doesn't need to be a select board vote. It falls under the Chapter 44 consultant line item. So the only decision that has to be made is where the funds are going to come from, and that will rely upon the town administrator to figure that out.
thank you.
You're welcome. Rob?
Thank you. First, Rita, thanks for passing my question regarding town council along and getting me an answer. I think others who are on this meeting might like to hear that, and if you want to share that would be great. Second point that I raised in that email to you was a request that the minutes of the last meeting reflect that no public comment was allowed. And I'd like your assurance that that is being done.
The minutes haven't been drafted yet, and yeah, anyway, I'll get back to you in writing.
Thank you. And do you want to share the information from
We
town council?
don't, this is public comment period. I just answered Miriam's because it was an immediate question, but we don't engage. So, Tom, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I thought I heard my name earlier from Becky, if it might have been about my email, but if it's not the right forum to ask that, I understand. But I thought I heard Becky mention my name right before the meeting started.
I don't think so. I think that was somebody whose mic was on.
Oh, but Becky said something about finding a file for Tom Seifert or something like that.
That's what I said.
Okay. Can I write to you an email about that then, Becky?
Sure.
Okay, great. Get well soon, Rita.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Get
All
well
right.
soon, I said.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so we are done with public comment. Now we have two sets of minutes to review. That's November 9th and December 1st. Eric and Melissa, any comments?
I don't have any.
Oops,
Eric,
Eric, you're muted.
I'm all set with those, both those.
Questions? Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of November 9th, 2022?
so moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. And now we have minutes from December 1st. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of December 1st?
So moved.
There's only one small comment I forgot that I believe at the very top, it says guests. I believe it's Christine Robinson and Sally Fairfield. I believe it's just to fill in the blanks on who those people were. That's all. But second, other than that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, with that minor change.
So I'll make a motion. We approve as amended,
Thank
Second.
you.
I guess. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. Okay, so I see we have Gail Fleischaker here. I don't know, Gail, if anybody else from your committee is here with you this evening.
Yes, Grace is here. She's on our committee, and Jamie was going to come, was going to try to come.
Okay, well, it's 5:45, so I want to go ahead and keep moving along on the agenda. So
Okay.
I know you submitted a description of IT needs to the select board, kind of most immediate needs, and then some ongoing needs, and also talked about the security of the town website.
Yes.
So do you want to go through this, or do you want us
Yes.
to put up your report? Would that be helpful?
Yes, it would. I'll just read from
Okay.
that. And I'll start at the bottom. This top of the next page, please. So as Rita says, there are three categories basically of needs: immediate, ongoing, immediate, one-off. And this last is a future one-off project. And this is about municipal record archiving. And this comes prompted by the report from the advisory committee on report status, and also the town clerk's laments about the ease of being able to get two documents for response to public requests, requests for public documents. It came up though as a discussion in the committee whether or not this as a topic is properly in the domain of the web committee. And I read Web Communications Committee broadly so that such that the website itself is public display and provision of records, And this would be the other side of that as retention and availability of public records. The difficulties were very clearly outlined in the report the advisory committee projected. So this basically is a request to say that yes, falls under the province of the web committee, and we can go forward with investigating how other towns around us handle this measure and learn therefrom, and then make some studies and recommendations based on that. And if you think this is not in our domain, then that would be a refusal of the request.
Did you want us to discuss this? Becky, I see your hand up. Did you have a comment?
I was just going to ask if this would be an addition to the web committee charge, correct? Is that what you're requesting, that the web committee charge and of what you're overseeing be expanded by these two items?
It's first a question of whether it's legitimate, and if it's not already included in that chart, then yes, it be expanded. It
So-
also is meant, if the committee is authorized, it would then allow us to talk to other towns openly without it being a behind the scenes nosy kind of thing.
There's just a lot of parts of the retention schedule that you would not be involved in. So I wouldn't want the assumption to be that all facets of the retention schedule would fall under the web committee.
Okay,
So what
could
parts
you
are
specify
those?
which, if you could clarify what in the overall project of retention and archiving might likely fall into the web committee province and what not, that would be very helpful.
Well, the physical documents that have to be kept, I would assume, are outside what you would be working on. And there's already, there's systems have been set up by the town clerk and the group that worked on this. There are specific documents like payroll records that we have to keep, but would never go on the website.
No. Oh, I'm not talking about putting them on the website. But must they be kept physically?
Yes. We have requirements to keep documents physically. That's
Oh,
part of the retention schedule. So that's all I'm pointing out is there would be, you have assisted in a great deal in, archiving our minutes and other things. The web committee has been the essential to that process, but there are a number of records that are not yet at the stage of being electronic.
okay. That's important information. Thank you.
Sure.
So do we want to defer any recommendation on that until there's more discussion?
Yeah, I think maybe I could sit down with Gail and go through and Grace is raising her hand. I'm sure she
Yeah.
has input as well.
Okay, Grace, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I do think that we are still very much in the early stages of this conversation. This document is largely informed by my experience as the town clerk. I'm sure there are other departments that would be able to add a lot more from their own perspectives as to what the town needs are for IT. But just as an example for why we really need to think about and provide the town with more IT support on a regular basis. The PSU in my town clerk work computer died completely the day after election day, so November 9th. And I have been dealing with that without the support of an IT person. And we do have Hank Allen, who I call him on the phone and he walks me through stuff and we figure it out. But that's not really the same thing as having somebody who could have responded same day. And it's caused a lot of problems, and I'm still figuring it out. Like, I need to now figure out how to
That's a different
get
story.
Excel back on my computer. But you know, it's just an example of I'm spending a lot of time doing basic IT stuff for myself so that I can function in my office. When ideally I would have somebody who was an actual expert who knew how to fix this stuff. So that's just a recent example I wanted to share, which I think is a reason why we need to have conversations about how to improve this.
Grace, I just want you to know we started on the last item, so they haven't been through that other issue yet.
Yes, that's
We'll-
true.
We'll get there.
The record archive. So I keep a lot of digital archives. This is something we've talked about. One of the things we talked about at the web committee meeting was that this is a specific project that we could actually hire vendors for. And there are specific vendors that I know of that we have in mind, but the question is that we now had as a committee, at least when I left the meeting, which I had to leave a little early because I was having internet issues. We were trying to figure out, was this something we can try to pursue as a committee? So I think that's part of the question of why is this part of the web committee's charge or not? Was there are ways we can do this project, which is big and is kind of IT related. But is it in our jurisdiction or not?
Good question.
Gail, do you want to
I
talk
would
about some?
suggest then that Becky and Grace and I meet separately and figure out what has to be kept physically, what is amenable to electronic archiving, and make some divisions of what kinds of records have to go which way, and then go back to the drawing board.
Sounds like a good suggestion. Can we move to the beginning of the
Yes.
your other recommendations?
The first issue is immediate and ongoing needs, as Grace pointed out. And we outlined some specific things for cybersecurity of town computers with bullet points, particularly remote public meetings, which become quite an issue now, given COVID. Meeting scheduling is a very different critter from what it was when simply assigning a room and a date for people to gather in town hall. And it involves much more technical expertise and handling that consumes much more time than the town clerk was required before physical handling. Another, almost an aside, is organizational email archiving. All of the at shutesbury.org emails. We're now being charged for those. There are licenses which we must buy from Google. And as long as we keep them active, we have to keep adding new licenses, which increase costs. If we could archive somehow the ones that are inactive, we do not need licenses for those. But for state mandated retrieval, we must have a safe and secure archiving system in place, electronic system in place. So in looking at the IT needs, I do not know technically even what that means or what's required. We have some tasks here. So I asked Hank Allen if I were to get his advice, would that count as consultation? And he said no. He'd be glad to look at the systems that are in place and advise. And I sent him the list, the first list that we had several weeks ago to look at that we had drawn up. And I got a response back. He would be happy to do it for free and give his advice. He responded today with an email saying that he would like to get a response to the committee by the end of this week, that he and his consultation affiliates have some proposals to make. So this is what the committee had drawn up. What's on the summary here is what the committee had drawn up. And I suggest that we just shelve it until we hear from Hank and his associates and what they might propose on this regard. But there's an ongoing need, that is for sure. And it was what, 3-4 years ago when the treasurer's computer was hacked?
7,
7 years ago?
and it was the accountant.
Just yesterday. Wow. Okay. But the thing gets worse and worse, and we are more and more vulnerable. So something needs to be done.
Well, there is one thing that can make it much more secure, is you can have a two-stage authentication process when someone signs in. So that can make it more safe, each computer. And I don't know the cost of that. I know that a lot of companies have gone that route. So you have your password, but you also have,
Right.
it will send a code to your
Phone number.
phone. You say yes, right. So it gives a second authentication, and that can add a layer of safety, at least.
Are
from the
those not
security.
on the computers at this point?
I don't believe so.
Wow.
They are in all
This is
my
frantically-
business life. They're everywhere in my business life. So
Yeah, right. But one of the reasons that I wanted to check with Hank was that he knows the setup and the situation on all these computers as it stands. And he's also got a view of other communities like us. So he would have both the broad view, knows the field, and has hands-on experience with our own setup. So I'm totally psyched to see what he proposes.
Can you tell me who Hank is? Because I don't know him.
Hank Allen is our go-to IT person.
He lives in town?
He did up until a couple of years ago. That's part of our issue. He is now living down on the Cape. But he was back, he comes back to the area, but he's been of great assistance, and he's been on call responding in 5 minutes, getting a phone call, and helped quite a bit through Grace's issue and through the transitions with the assessor and Gail's other computer. So it's been amazing. He's been on call. He was working with Ellen this morning when she had a problem with her email.
And do we pay him?
Yes, we do, hourly.
And that comes out of what?
IT support line.
It's an IT support consultation line, I believe.
It doesn't say consultation, it says IT support.
IT support, okay.
So what you spoke with him about, Gail, was what that might look like on a regular basis as opposed to just as needed?
Asked his advice on how we handle the whole issue. And I would ask the select board whether that would include SES computers, library computers. You know, what is the extent of town cybersecurity?
The school has their own IT person, and they run separately from us.
Okay,
So it would just be the town and possibly library.
there are IT services out there, cybersecurity services out there that charge hefty fees. I did inquire of Debbie Lee, who has the computer lab at the school, if she might know what the cybersecurity situation was there, and I have not had a response. So thank you, Becky, for making that clear. I might check with them to see what they do, though.
yeah, they could be a good information source.
So partly what this
Questions?
is that we know the needs, we the committee know the needs, we don't really know the details of what it would take to meet those needs. So this too, then I think will be in advance until we hear back from Hank and see if what his proposal is and the basis of his proposal.
And then were you contemplating this going into next year's budget, or were you?
Yes. Yes.
So that there's sufficient money in the line item to cover any needs for this year?
Yes. And given that the FinCom is already looking at committee requests for budgeting, the sooner the better, so we can get some grounding on the cost of how the needs are to be met.
And then, so you haven't submitted anything to them,
no.
obviously.
No.
And from the select board, what would you like from us at this point? Is it just acknowledgement of the need, or?
Yes, I think so. And approval for us to continue investigating needs and ways of meeting those needs without making commitments. I mean, this is an information gathering session.
Okay.
And
I
it
think
would,
it's a great idea. It's long overdue, frankly.
and to answer your question, Rita, I'm thinking about it in terms of the beginning of the 24 budget, that the consultation fees for IT service would service until the end, through the end of the fiscal 23. So it would not be an imposition of a cost between now and the beginning of the year. Is that more to point?
Yeah, that's, I was just trying to figure out if this was something that you were looking for money for this current year.
No.
But it's really looking ahead.
Yeah.
And
I'll come back to you as soon as we get some kind of a proposal from that Hank has referred to. Interesting, he talks about his consultation associates, he and his consultation associates. So I don't know what that means, but I'm really curious to see.
it might be his pets.
Oh, please, no.
Just kidding.
Rita, excuse me, I just wanted to mention that Jamie Malcolm Brown just came, and as a member of the web committee for many, many years, he might have a little bit of input to share before you close.
Okay, I wasn't quite ready to close. I don't.
Oh, good.
Jamie, is there anything you wanted to add to this, to the discussion?
Well, the next point, we haven't gotten to the next point yet.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, maybe on the immediate IT needs.
Yes.
So yeah, I just joined, so I didn't know what you were just
Okay.
discussing.
So Gail has been going through the, talking about the immediate needs and the potential for securing funding in the next fiscal year for somebody to deal with the IT stuff on a regular basis.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so as a longtime member, I know there's been a lot of things that we've kind of let slide as far as like website updates and like security issues for the town computers and stuff. So in my opinion, I think it'd make a lot of sense to have somebody who actually paid attention to those things and made sure that they got done, because they're very important, keeping the website secure and the same, keeping the computer secure.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Jamie. Eric, do you have any, or Melissa, anything else in terms of first section?
No, I mean, just that I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's certainly, yeah, backups and how things are backed up and how the whole question, all these questions are good questions and should be answered. It's just too important not to answer them. I think Grace has another question too, just so if you didn't see her there.
Go ahead, Grace.
I just wanted to add another thing to this, which is sort of related to an immediate need. It's also kind of related to archiving. I have a problem as a town clerk that I like to call the floppy disk problem, which is I have a shelf full of floppy disks in the archives that almost definitely, and in some cases most definitely, include very important documents. And I currently have no way to access those floppy disks. and I could figure that out if it ever really comes up, but it hasn't really come up yet. So it's just a shelf of floppy disks that taunt me.
Grace,
And
I can offer a tidbit for that, and I don't have experience with it, so I'm not exactly sure 100% if it is this easy, but there are readers out there for those older discs that do
Yes.
have a USB port
Yes.
that goes in.
and
I
we could
don't
get
quite.
those. We could get those, and we could get the right software. And if it ever comes to that, luckily my dad knows how to do it. I don't know
Good,
how to
okay.
do it, but my dad knows how to do it.
Okay.
But so one of the things that I often think about an IT person might be really good for is figuring out how to digitally archive stuff so that it's really easy for us to access, but also thinking about what is still going to be accessible 50 years down the line, or in the case of the floppy disks, 20 years down the line.
Okay, I want to go
It
ahead
doesn't have to be
and
that far ahead.
I want to move on to the last section, Gail, to talk about the security of the town website,
Yes, please.
and kind of where we are with that.
So we are currently running on Drupal 8, which is no longer supported by Drupal 8. And there is a batch of security updates that have not been installed. And it really takes technical expertise to be able to do the installations. The committee's suggestion is that we hire a professional to do the total move from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9, which will include all the security updates and bring us up to date. And I have been in conversation with Pantheon, our online host. They do not do the total upgrade from one to the other, but they have in their network several agencies who are affiliated with Pantheon who do that service. One of them, and he made the fellow I've been talking with at Pantheon, made the introduction to a contact at Origins. And I've been in some conversation with Origins. They came back with just an initial ballpark figure of $4,000 to $5,000 to do the total upgrade from one to the other. He's going to have his tech lead look at it more carefully to see what a detailed quote would look like and the real cost. And I've asked also if there is a possibility of the service of installing updates, say on a quarterly basis. Jamie says that the updates just keep coming up and you have to install them. But Pantheon will do that for $7,000 to $10,000 a year. I don't think that we want to go that route. But I have suggested to Origins and have not gotten an answer back if there would be such a thing as simply on a quarterly basis, install the updates that are made available during that 3-month period. So I guess my request, or the committee's request, or my request, is to continue the conversation with Origins and to get a detailed quote with exactly what the services would be, what the cost would be, what the long-term outcome would be for our town website, and then bring that back to the select board for approval or discussion or funding possibilities, and hand it off to Becky to write contracts.
So, and that's for the current fiscal year you're talking about.
That would be the select board
To do it.
I think
now.
that would, I mean, this has been on for a long time, so it's not like an emergency, got to get it done by next week situation. It may make a difference into the amount of money in terms of budget, whether it gets folded into the next year or whether there are pieces of it available now, but it does not have, it's something that should be done soon, but it's not like an imminent collapse of the website if we don't do it.
Okay, is this something that Hank Allen would opine on, or is this we just?
I have no notion what his skill box includes in terms of Drupal.
Okay.
It's technical background Drupal stuff. It's not just ordinary computer. It's not just writing an HTML code and plugging in place. Jamie could speak more to that.
Jamie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, so it requires more like database knowledge and Drupal specific knowledge, as long as also understanding how Pantheon works as the web host. And I've probably put in like close to 30 or 40 hours on getting the upgrade going, but there's still a lot of time that needs to be done. So a lot of the prep work has been done, but it just takes time.
I see Grace's hand too, Rita.
Oh, okay. I'm scrolling here. Go ahead, Grace.
That was an accident. I did not have anything to
Okay.
say. I meant to lower my
Okay.
hand.
Okay. So it sounds like this is something we might want to consider during this fiscal year. It's a one-time expense, but then the updating will be the question.
Correct.
So do you want to come back to us with a price?
Yeah, I think that would be smart. You get a detailed quote, exactly what the costs are, exactly what the performances are, with a timeline they propose and a timeline of necessity, and go from there.
Okay,
Does that seem reasonable?
yeah.
I think so.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think so too.
Eric?
Yeah,
Yep,
I think so.
yep. Good.
Okay. So I think, yeah, if you do that for the Drupal, whatever it is.
Yes,
That name is pretty funny. And then you're going to meet with Becky and Grace on the
the
archiving, and then I think you have our support in terms of moving ahead to go to the finance committee to discuss, having some routine IT support in next year's budget.
Okay.
Rita?
Becky, do you have a comment?
Yes, I think this request for the specific item really is more appropriate for capital planning for the one time.
But
But
yeah, but it's, I mean, then it pushes it into next year.
well, it doesn't have to. I mean, because money, if money has to come from a town meeting, it could still be this year. But I'm just saying at likely $5,000. I know it's not a physical item, but I think in this, a lot of this conversation should be part of our capital planning and to look at these longer term changes. I'm just,
Are they even meeting?
they're going to meet shortly. Yeah. Ellen's trying to give me a date.
Okay, well, why don't we figure that out? And then we'll let you know, Gail. How's
Okay.
that? But
It's infrastructure, so
okay.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Anything else from the web committee or from this presentation that you want to close with, Gail?
that's it.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you for hearing us.
Yeah, well, thanks for all your hard work. That was a lot of
Thanks for doing this.
time
Thank you.
that was put into it, and a very clear presentation. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to talk about the four-town meeting that's coming up for the regional schools. And I don't know, Becky, if anybody's here from Finance Committee, or if there's anything, if anybody was planning on coming. But
I told them that it was going to be on your agenda. I think I just wanted to make sure you were aware that the Finance Committee has been talking a lot about the track and field project. I know that the Select Board has started receiving a lot of emails in opposition to the artificial turf. It's likely to be one of the topics at the Ford town meeting. The other topic will be the assessment formula. Doug Slaughter happened in yesterday, delivering a CPC letter of request or for the track.
It was probably a determination of eligibility as opposed to a letter of request. Yeah.
Yeah, determination of eligibility. Thank you for correcting that, Rita. So it appears that the region is continuing on trying to fund the school committee vote for the artificial turf. And the finance committee is developed a position pretty much against the artificial turf. Between the Boston Globe articles where Boston is talking about banning artificial turf, and I think there's a PFAS part of the problem with the artificial turf. So I just wanted the select board to be aware of those issues that were going to be under discussion at the Fort Town region on the 17th, is 2 Saturdays from now.
So just remind me, so it was the artificial turf, but then did you talk about the formula?
Yeah, and also the second major issue that Doug Slaughter brought up was that during the summer, there was a committee formed to talk about guardrails on the assessment formula. You'll recall last year, the guardrail was voted by all 4 towns, and the impact it had was to make sure that Pelham did not pay more than 4%. And the opposite result, that Shutesbury did not get more than pay less than, how did it work? We didn't
reduce more than 4%. So there was no more than a 4% change either up or down.
Yeah.
Right. So there was lengthy discussion last summer about the guardrails. Finance committee members participated in that. It seemed like no one was interested in it. The last report from AJ and Bob to the finance committee on the guardrails was that it appeared that the region administration was still wanting to keep the concept moving forward. My conversation with Doug clarified that they're hopeful that the guardrails can be used as a tool if we're in a position where one town is going to be more than 4 or impacted more than 4%, but that they are not moving forward with a full policy and adopting it as part of the assessment formula.
And why are we even talking about the formula? If we agreed upon the statutory formula.
Because they're talking, the only portion of discussion about the formula that was left was the guardrails.
I see.
I
Okay.
believe the formula statutory will, with the 5-year rolling average, will be
Right.
the only one used. Doug had not yet run the numbers, so he's hopeful there won't be any need for a discussion about guardrails.
Okay. So Eric and Melissa, either of you have any questions?
I don't. You may have noticed my camera has stopped working, so I'm here.
Okay.
No, I don't have any questions. Will they give us a full agenda, Becky, beforehand so we can an updated one so we can look at it before the meeting, or no?
I'm hopeful they will. Doug's going to be working on the numbers next week. So it's unlikely we'll get them much ahead of the meeting.
My question would be, does our finance committee have any opinions on this subject? Well, I'm sure they do, but what are they?
Their
Do we
opinion,
know?
they definitely have an opinion on the track and field. But you're asking if they have an opinion on the guardrails?
No, track
Well,
and field.
Track and field, yeah.
yeah.
Their opinion on the track and field is that that this should not be pursued. That not only the cost, but the environmental damage, potential damage.
So the
they-
artificial turf, but was there any discussion about the alternative of grass? The less expensive alternative?
I think the problem, why they haven't come to support the grass is because the ongoing maintenance costs make it a much higher cost than the artificial turf. And the amount of teams and that can use the field in a given week is less. So even though it appears that the grass seems cheaper because the capital costs are lower, the ongoing maintenance costs are much higher. That's what Steve Sullivan was reflecting.
Did-
The problem.
Becky,
And
did they look into the winter maintenance of that? Because you can't leave snow in it. You have to clear the snow off.
that's a good point.
You're exchanging mowing the grass and maintaining grass for cleaning off AstroTurf during, or the turf field during snow. You can't leave snow on it.
Well, that's good to add to the picture. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're not really, this meeting is coming up. You were just reviewing what the issues are.
I had hopes that Finance Committee was going to be here, so I did not remind them and so here
Well,
we-
there are, I know in the past we have sometimes met in advance, like a half an hour before the start of a meeting. So maybe that's the best, to do a joint select board finance committee meeting in advance of the start of the four-town meeting. I
The
think
school
was
committee, school committee too, Rita.
yeah, a school committee. Right, sorry, thank you.
That's going to be a virtual meeting, right? I believe,
Yeah.
from what I saw.
Yeah, but you remember how we started in a separate room and then we joined. So if we have the school committees, finance and select board, is the meeting at 9 o'clock on the 17th?
yes.
So why don't we plan on that? And then we'll have some numbers. I mean, typically that first meeting is anyway, just to review the budget, and perhaps by that point, there'll be more direction from the town of Amherst, because it seems like Amherst, that there was a split vote on the town council, right?
Right.
And without the Amherst town council going forward, it calls into question the whole viability of the financing, right?
And they're counting on a lot of fundraising and donations from alumni. And I don't believe they had those figures at all yet. The school committee was waiting to get word on the fundraising status. And that'll be another large piece.
Okay, so why don't we set it up for 8:30 on that Saturday morning?
Okay.
With the three committees. And then we'll have an agenda, and maybe we'll have some more updated information.
And Rita, the hope this year is we only have 1 or 2 four-town meetings because of the assessment being resolved. So
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
Okay, all right, great. Anything else, Melissa, Eric?
Well, just that my sense is we'd probably have to have at least 2 for town meetings. I mean, I can't believe all these things are just gonna be a budget and track rebuilding and all that are all gonna be solved in one meeting. I mean, that's the first meeting will, I think, be to just sort of air those problems out. The second one would be to maybe come to some agreement from all towns about what the answer is. I don't see how we can do that in one meeting. That's all.
You'll say,
Yeah.
okay, all right, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the PFAS update. Becky, that's you.
So this past week, we received a letter of responsibility. It was actually right before Thanksgiving. And it's a letter from DEP that's stating that the town is responsible for the PFAS that has been found in the soil around the fire station, as well as in the groundwater at least 5 wells of 3 residents and 2 public buildings in the vicinity of the fire station. The UMass began a program 2 years ago asking residents, giving out free tests, asking residents if they wanted to test for PFAS. I think at between residents in Shutesbury responded. Then DEP came in once positive tests started being reported in Shutesbury. And they came in and started noting where clusters were forming. We have 2 clusters in town. One is around the fire station. The second is around Old Orchard. Testing continued. DEP was instrumental in providing free testing to many residents. They expanded the area around the fire station, going all the way down to to Pelham Hill Road and up to town center to just south of, just west of town hall. We also did test, they also agreed to test town hall, which proved negative for PFAS, but the other areas were positive. They came back this past July and put in test wells around the fire station yard. And they did more water sampling and ground sampling in that area. And then that's the background to the letter we received that is stated, we are responsible to bringing in and cleaning up the PFAS in Shutesbury that the town was an active participant in. It was the foam spray used by the fire department when they did vehicular fires and put them out. They would do these trainings in different, mostly around the tower, and that's where most of the tests have taken place. So Shutesbury has an obligation to meet. They gave us a 30-day deadline to have all primary sites where Shutesbury installed poets, their point of entry filters, that Shutesbury moved immediately when we first learned of the positive tests. Following Mark Watkins' lead, he found a vendor for poets filters for the wells, and we ended up installing 4 more and paying for the Watkins poet. We tested the Watkins after the poets were done. DEP also tested their water and affirmed that the filters were working and that the tests on the wells that had been reading as high as 170 parts per trillion did not show a sign of PFAS. So our new responsibility within these first 30 days is to hire an LSP and have the LSP do testing of those 5 that we've identified. And then work with the LSP to determine our next steps. And then take that proposal plan to DEP and review it with them to be certain that they are in agreement that the actions that we want to take in the next 60 and 120 days fit into the required IRAs that we will be required to fill out as we move into this phase. So the actions we have taken last week, Rita and I met with DEP. We met with John Ziegler and Caprice Shaw. Caprice Shaw has been the DEP person instrumental in doing the testing and the DEP coordinator for Shutesbury on the PFAS project. We had a good discussion where they outlined what actions they wanted us to take. We were able to ask questions on the number of houses required in the first round and how those tests should be administered. They're requiring the pre and post affluent testing. I was in contact Friday. We reached out. Well, by Friday, I was in conversation. I reached out on Monday to recommended LSPs. The highest recommended with PFAS experience were Fuss and O'Neill and Ty and Bond. I requested the proposals from each of them to do the initial testing that was required in such a short deadline. And today received the second proposal, and we have decided to move ahead with Ty and Bond, given the proposals we received. And Ty and Bond will be in Shutesbury on Thursday. I have contacted the residents involved to set up the testing. And we hope to keep moving down this path of facing our responsibilities and doing our best. One thing that was mentioned in the meeting, DEP was very impressed that we had immediately taken responsibility for the PFAS that we found without any letters or even contact from DEP. And that Shutesbury is continuing like we did at the fire station to make sure with the gasoline issue that we're trying to do all we can to resolve this matter as quickly as possible.
Just has a lot of feedback. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but is everybody's mic muted? Okay. Just as Becky mentioned, I participated in that meeting with Caprice Shaw and John Ziegler, and they were very, very positive and actually spoke to how proactive Shutesbury was when the first testing was done, and that we immediately, unlike a number of towns, we immediately addressed getting filters for the households. So this subsequent testing just demonstrates that we need to continue to be vigilant. We need to go back and look at all those houses that have filters and make sure that, in fact, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then longer term, having some sort of plan, as Becky was saying, about, how else might we address the PFAS? I mean, the PFAS is in the soil, it's in the water. We're obviously not going to remove contaminated, a massive amount of contaminated soil, if that's in fact what there is behind the fire station. It's just, unrealistic and probably wouldn't solve the problem. So we're gonna work on it, but the most immediate thing is getting this this testing taken care of. So Melissa, Eric, do you have questions?
Not a question, Rita, just kind of a statement is the fact that we have a filter that does such a great job as a solution is impressive as well. You have the problem, but you also have a solution that does filter the water and give water that's much clearer for people to drink. So I just want to acknowledge that there is a good solution, barring removing all of the soil.
Eric?
What are the others? Is there another solution to this problem other than removing the soil, or just the filters, or what are the options? Do we know yet?
They don't even know. I mean, removing the soil is really is an extreme. There are a lot of, we're not the only community that's dealing with
Sure
it. There
not.
are
Yeah, right.
communities all over the Commonwealth that have a similar problem with PFAS, and it's not all just from fire stations. It's from, a lot of other situations. So, we're going to rely upon our licensed site professionals to make the recommendation about how we move forward and how we address this. And, as Becky mentioned initially, it's not only at the fire station. There is there's another neighborhood in town where there was no firefighter foam used that has PFAS problems. So, it's everywhere. It's the forever chemical. So that tells you something about, the ability to try to move it away.
I assume up there on Old Orchard was the fact it was an orchard at one point. I assume that's the problem.
We don't know. Yeah. Becky?
I just wanted to add that the Tie and Bond LSP has been very involved in this since 2018. And while there is not a known solution, he said some of the best minds in the country are working on this. It's going to be $1 billion solution for whoever figures it out. And the second piece, he's been working in Princeton and has forwarded us the contact, legal contact for Princeton, as they've started a class action and that the state is also involved in, that we can participate in. So I'm hopeful to bring that forward to the select board for a decision of joining in on the class action to help assist us in some funding as we tackle this problem in Shutesbury.
A class action against whom?
The manufacturer.
Is it only one
Fire.
manufacturer? The foam manufacturer?
Yep. But it's going to be against hundreds in the end, I think, because it's in your shampoo. It's everywhere. It's in food containers. They said that to do the testing, the people coming out to test can't, they are limited in what shampoos they can use the day before and what they're wearing to be sure that they're not bringing any additional PFAS into the environment where they're testing. So it's all around us.
Yeah. Eric and Melissa, do you want to take a couple of public comments?
Sure, it's okay with me.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Les, go ahead.
Thank you. The report that Rita, you and Becky, that you have been given is exactly what I was talking about in my initial comments in terms of providing a report, not just at a select board meeting, but to a wider audience, and really summarizing, giving background, describing a report to the town, because this is a pretty high profile issue and it raises lots of questions, and people need to know what's going on in their community. So as I mentioned before, I encourage you to prepare a report the goods, the bads, the uglies in terms of the situation and what we want to do going forward. I think that with that kind of transparency would be really helpful going forward. So thank you for listening to me.
Thanks for your comment. Okay. Anything else? All right. The next item on the agenda is the update on the School Building Authority boiler application.
Did we skip the guide board thing? Weren't we going to deal with, or did that,
No.
do we?
No,
No,
we're not.
okay.
We're going to do that at the next meeting.
Okay, fine, no problem. Okay,
Okay, I guess the boiler's me again. Sorry, Rita.
That's
But
okay.
at least you don't have to talk the whole time.
Right.
So the MSBA invited Shutesbury into their MSBA program for the boiler. The roof was denied. When MSBA came out to Shutesbury in September, Jackie Mendonza and I met with them, and we asked for as much detail as we could about the program and how it functions. So basically, we have this 120 days to respond, to give them more information and to move forward to the second stage of the program. They underscore the fact that we have been invited but not yet approved. So the first step, we need to confirm that we will secure funding of between $60,000 and $100,000 for a feasibility study regarding the boiler. Feasibility and design. If we determine that we want to move forward, that would be, planning a special town meeting and committing the money. They have said that it could be up to $1 million project, which we are trying to identify as to what the $1 million would pay for and get us. All work for the $1 million would be restricted to the boiler room itself. This summer, we did a $250,000 valve project on the HVAC system at the elementary school, which contains some elements of in the boiler room, but for the majority of it, the valves are all over the school. There's 36 of them, I think. So the project is limited to that area. Our boilers are made out of heavy steel. We have replaced pumps a number of times. Most recently last year, one of them got replaced. It's still not 100% clear what the upgrade of the boiler for the $1 million would provide. I presented this information to the Finance Committee last week. Bob Groves had more questions. He wanted to know, well, exactly what do we get for our money? I can't tell you that. So Bob and I arranged for a meeting with 2 individuals from the MSBA, which will happen at 3 o'clock tomorrow on Wednesday, where Bob will attempt to get the answers to those questions. Bob and I will work together to get those answers so the town can be clear on if they decide to walk away, if the select board decides that the boiler MSBA project is not for them, they will have as much information available to them when they do it. And so if you have any questions, Rita and Eric and Melissa, that you want us to pose with the MSBA, we'll be happy to do that.
Melissa, Eric?
well, yeah, I think the general question would be, what will we get for $1 million? I mean, that seems to be a good question. Let's start with that one.
Right. Yeah, I think just all the information possible that they can give us. Not knowing what that kind of system would be. on that scale. So lots of questions, Becky, of all kinds.
Do they fund this 100%?
No, we
No.
get to pay for half of it.
Oh, forget it.
Hey, okay.
And we get to pay for the initial feasibility study. So if after that it goes nowhere, we're out 60 to 100,000.
My personal opinion is it's ill-advised to pursue this. We couldn't get the money for the roof, which we really, really need.
Desperately.
But they
And
want to
we-
give us $1 million, they want to give us $500,000 for a boiler that we don't really need to have replaced at this point. But we just put $250,000 into.
That would be
It's-
my, yeah, that would be my.
Somehow
feeling.
doesn't, it doesn't make any
Doesn't
sense
fit.
to me. But, you know, I think it will be good to have Bob be a part of that conversation to discuss it with the MSBA.
And Bob was helpful. I mean, he was, instead of just saying this is ill-advised and closing the door, he wanted one more stab at trying to figure out, because he was like, well, there's state money there. We don't want to walk away if there's any potential of it being useful. But, so we'll see where it goes.
But the state money that we have to match 50%.
Mhm.
So, okay, well, I'll leave it to you and Bob to pursue that with the MSBA and come back to us with a recommendation, but
Yeah, I'd be very curious. I'd agree. It's a lot of money for, I mean, it sounds like we'd be, if we did it, we'd be in for like $550,000 roughly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, for something that's not quite clear to me we need desperately. So I don't know, I'd be very cautious,
Yes.
but I'm sure Bob will be very cautious too. So there we go.
All right. We'll report back.
okay, great. Anything else, Melissa, Aaron?
Mm-mm. Nope.
All right, so we just want to talk about a future meeting with the Conservation Commission about Lot 032. And I had tentatively written to or exchanged emails with Miriam DeFont about possibly putting this on the agenda for the next select board meeting, which I believe is December 20th. Is that right, Becky?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So that is pending more information that I think we're waiting on some test results and also some information from the special counsel that was retained by the select board. So I think, you know, once we have an idea about what the direction is, what the recommendations are, there's a Conservation Commission meeting this coming Thursday, which is a continuation of the hearing on the NRAD, which is the wetlands delineation for Lot 032. I think that will help kind of inform some of what we're going. So I guess this is, you know, what I'm saying is I'm not absolutely committing to the 20th, and it will await again more discussion with our council, our special counsel, and the outcome of the testing. It might be premature on the 20th, I guess is what I'm saying. So once we have that other information in hand, then we'll make a determination if it's the 20th or perhaps a meeting, next meeting after that, which would be the beginning of January. Questions, Eric or Melissa?
No, that sounds like a good plan.
I agree.
Okay. All right. the last item on the agenda, Mary Lou, I see your hand, but I'm not, there's no discussion right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Town administrator updates.
I'm going to keep this brief. The recap is not yet complete. We've had more assistance from Roy Bishop, as well as David Burgess. David Burgess was in again today. They are solving some computer issues, and we hope to have that all wrapped up by the end of the week. Free cash has been sent in for certification. There was one request for information today, and again, we hope to have free cash certified by the end of this week as well. Last week, while I was away, I asked Geneva to take a picture of our boiler because there was a question by the Green Communities regarding the boiler. She ran down into the boiler room and discovered that we had a leak and there was water all over the floor. On a Friday afternoon, I was glad that that did not persist all weekend. Thank you, Geneva. And we were able to get Jamrog in. I think they were in an hour later and cleaned up and resolved the issue. And the unfortunate thing, the weather tomorrow, the forecasted rain of at least 80% has caused the delay of the Gale Associates engineering work at the elementary school roof. We are going to try to find an alternative day and not have to wait to just a Wednesday if possible, because as winter is coming on, this really needs to get done, and it's our second delay because of weather. And the last thing I've already talked about was the meeting with the MSBA that will be held tomorrow. And that's it for my report this week.
Becky, what about any word back from the PVTA? Because I know next door, and not next door, Village Neighbors and the Council on Aging are very interested.
So I did hear back from Paul Johnson, who is a person who puts together programs at PVTA. He informed me he is still working through the understanding how to add a town legally to the PVTA group. They have not added a new town in many, many years. It's a bit complicated, but in the end, he thinks what it's going to take is going to be a vote from the Shutesbury Selectboard and a compelling letter from the Select Board to the board of PVTA. PVTA board would also have to approve the town. And then we could start working on how, whether we have enough people and the numbers that would create a fixed route. Other than a fixed route, everything is either only for seniors or is only on call. And the only way to get up to the point of doing something more than an on-call, we would have to, we need to work on a survey, get that out to the community. Paul said that they will help construct the survey and help us get a sense of what the needs in Shutesbury are for public transportation. So he's presenting it to be a complicated process, but the beginning steps are simple. And at least at a minimum, he feels that we should be able to provide on-call service for our seniors, which is the primary goal and where the request started.
Yeah, and I would assume that's the direction that we're heading in, as opposed to having some sort of regular bus route through Shutesbury. I think the Village Neighbors and the Council on Aging were really about seniors and the need for rides to medical appointments and to town for other services. And it makes more sense to pursue it with the PVTA than the FRTA, the Franklin Regional Transit Authority.
It
Because
appears-
they're oriented to Greenfield.
Yeah, it appears on the surface that going into Amherst is much easier to accomplish on a regular basis with PVTA style ride program as opposed to Franklin counties.
Oh,
We
okay,
will touch base and so we can have a comparison.
great. Questions, Eric or Melissa?
No, that's all good.
That's good.
All right, great. All right, that's it, Becky?
That's it.
All right, so do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace, O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Errol, aye. Good night, everybody. Thanks
night.
for coming.
Night.
Feel better,
thank you.
feel better, Rita.
Thank you.
Thank you.